For the last couple of years, I've tried to limit my spending on new models. One, I have more than enough models in my stash to last for quite a while. And two, we just don't have the money to buy a lot of new models. But I always have a little set aside so that if I see something I really like, I can pick it up. And, well, that's why I have this. Now, this is the Galleon. It's 1/35th scale. It's from Hasegawa. It's from an anime and a novel and a movie and some other stuff called Crusher Joe. Now, I had never heard of Crusher Joe, or if I had heard of it, I didn't remember hearing of it. Apparently, Crusher Joe, it's a very, very unique storyline for an anime. It's about space and the future and advanced technology and things that go shooty pew pew and angsty teens. So, completely original. But I don't know anything about the anime, to be honest. And I haven't researched it. I mean, to be completely blunt, I don't care. It's not that I don't care. I mean, no, when I've told some people that I'm doing this, they're like, oh, cool, Crusher Joe, and they knew all about it. I'm sure it's cool. But I just saw this, and I'm like, it's like an M113 with giant laser guns on it and jet engines. How could I resist? So, yeah, going to be building this. Now, the kit's from Hasegawa, and Hasegawa, I've always been impressed with their molding and the detail on their kits, and this one is no exception. It's got very good detail. It's 1/35th scale, and the model, except for the figures, is push fit, though I'll probably be gluing it together. And it's nicely detailed. You know, the seats are going to be fun to paint, and you know, it's got all the little details and stuff. One thing that makes me laugh about the figures, and I'll show you a picture of them in a minute, but they all wear these skin tight suits. They're completely covered, but I thought it would I can't help but laugh at it. I thought it would be hysterical to paint their legs in flesh and make them look like that guy on, what is it, on the Spaceman Spiff character? What is that, Futurama or Simpsons or something? I don't remember. But you can just see, you know, if you paint them whatever the color of their uniform is, it looks right. But if you paint them flesh, it looks kind of creepy. So more on that later. But it's got multicolored parts. The idea being that, you know, a young builder can take this and build it and no paint is needed. But I'm going to be painting it. You can see there's the interior. And it's got a little bit of detail. Most of the detail comes from decals. I saw a build where a guy had done a really nice job of scratch building a lot of the interior, replacing the decals with scratch build stuff. And he even did lighting, and it looked really cool. And I took one look at it and said, that's not me. I'd never do that. So whoever you are, if you happen to be watching this, I saw your model, and it looked really cool. And I'm glad you did it. But I'm just sticking to out of the box as I normally do. And I love the tracks. One piece. And no, there's no track sag. Who cares? I don't. There's some dark gray pieces, and there are some poly caps for some of the parts that are going to move and stuff like that. Nice set of decals with all sorts of, I don't know if I'm going to be using all of this, but most of this goes on the interior. You can see little, you know, radar thingy dealies and sidewall dealies and all sorts of dealies. So a few clear parts, headlights, and it's got red sirens on it and things like that. So I mean, this one, as soon as it came in, I ordered it from, I found it at several sources here in the U.S. It wasn't hard to find, and it wasn't a particularly expensive kit. I think I paid $35 for it, if I remember right. Maybe 40. But I found it plenty of places. Hasegawa, so it wasn't like a wave kit that's a little more difficult to get. But as soon as it came in, I said, yeah, this is next thing after the P39. Now the instructions, there's a bit of a description here in English and Japanese. And if you're not familiar, I'm sure most people are who build models that come from Japan, but if you get a translate app on your phone, you can translate all of this, and it does a pretty good job. Then you've got your part sprues, kind of your decal and your color layouts. Here's the characters. You got Speed and Trixie and Spritle and Pops. Oh, wait, wrong anime. This is Joe and Alphen and Talos and Ricky. Now, you see, it always, I don't know anything about the anime, but it always cracks me up that there's all these teens and then there's usually one old guy with them. And, I'm just seeing pictures of, white vans with no windows and they've been kidnapped or something. Sorry, I shouldn't make fun of that, but it's just whatever. I will probably, and you see what I mean about the legs on the figures, they're very tight fitting, but if you paint them as flesh, it'll look like they're all in their tighty whities, because you could do the arms and the legs as flesh, and I think it would look hysterical, but I probably won't. But the instructions are fairly clear. Hasegawa's instructions are usually pretty good. And it's got a lot of moving parts. This rocket part on the, let me go back to this picture. This rocket part up on the top. Let's see if there's another view. Hang on. Yeah, here we go. This rocket pod on the top lifts up and out of the chassis. This white part on the front is actually a bulldozer blade. It pops out. These hatches on the front open up, though I'm actually considering this whole panel here that's over the cockpit area, the interior area. It's one piece, and I'm actually considering just making that so you can lift that off to see the interior. Not entirely sure yet if I want to do that. Now, the interior I'm going to paint and detail and do all that stuff, maybe weathered a little bit, but my plan right now, I may change my mind as I go through the build, but my plan right now is the outside of this thing is going to be weathered like you wouldn't believe. Because I'm thinking if this thing is going around just basically crushing rocks and fighting people off, doing all the shooty pew pew things it does, it's going to get mighty beat up. So this will be a fun thing to weather. But you can kind of see the silhouette, the boxy silhouette of a M113. I mean, any APC type vehicle that's boxy looks like an M113. But yeah, it's got jet engines on the back, kind of on the back and the underside. And, who wouldn't love a jet powered M113? You could definitely get through, speaking from experience, you could get through the streets of Mogadishu much faster that way. Okay, I've got the model assembled to the point that I want to have it assembled. I've probably ended up with a few too many sub-assemblies, but as I was going through it and thinking, do I want to make this a sub-assembly or not put this part on yet? I just kept coming up with, I need to leave that part off. So let me kind of explain what I've done. Now, as far as the overall fit, it's not Bandai, but it's pretty good. There's most of the assembly is fairly logical. I did have to do a little bit of sanding along here. Now that I'm looking at it, I think I may need to do a little more along there. It wouldn't be a Hasegawa kit if there wasn't some kind of crazy seam line sanding you had to deal with. The gun, it's 2 halves split right down the middle. Good luck with it. I just finally said, I've done all the sanding I'm going to do, and that's it. What I did, because I want to paint the interior, what I did was I cut off these pegs right here and right here that hold the top and the bottom together, and right here. And I just kind of clipped them at a 45-degree angle. Can you see that? So that I could test fit this onto it and get it all the way seated on there, but then I could pull it apart very easily. Because if I didn't clip those pegs, once I got it together, it fit pretty tight. Because what that allowed me to do was it allowed me, one, to see how everything was going together. I was able to get these parts on the back. There we go. Come on, John. There we go. I was able to get these parts on the back glued on, even though there's some of it on the lower half. I guess it helps to be on camera. And some of it on the upper half. This hatch, or whatever this thing is, I left it. It's not actually glued in, because I found out that once it's fully seated and glued in, it's best to have it glued to the upper part too. So this is actually, I can just pop this off, but I can paint it very easily and then glue it at the very end. For the interior, that's, aside from the figures, that's it. You've got this tub, and then you've got these seats that go in here. I did put some plastic card on the back right there because they were hollow. And I'll show you why that matters in just a minute. But my plan is, I'm going to paint the interior fairly simply. I'm just gonna paint it, and I'm going to put on the decals they supply, paint a little, the details, put a wash on it. I'm not going to try and weather it or anything like that. I'll just keep it fairly, I guess you'd say, anime, not accurate, but anime faithful to a certain degree. Keep that fairly simple. And then on the exterior, because the reason I debated whether I wanted to paint the interior at all and whether I wanted to just seal the thing up, because you can open these hatches. Now I've left these off because they're going to be a different color, so just for ease of color separation, I left them off. But these hatches are going to be able to open up like this, and there's some hinge parts that have to be glued in to hold them in place, and I left those hinges off so I can glue them in later. But the reason I decided to paint the interior is because it occurred to me that this whole part can lift off and you can see what's in there. So what I did, it had two pegs right here that would go into these two holes right here to hold that part in, and you would glue it. Of course, once you put it in there fairly solid. So all I did was clipped off the pegs, and these holes were about the right size for 2mm by 1mm magnets. So I put this on top, drilled up through it, mounted some magnets there, and I may go in and fill that in and even that out. I may not, who cares, who knows. But now that part can go in there, and the magnets will hold it in place enough, the magnets and friction, so that whoever ends up having it, if they do want to look at the inside, they can just pop that open. This little hatch opens, but I think it's got a clear part around it, but you can't see through the clear part. There's just bare plastic behind it. I think I'm just going to glue this closed and paint over the whole thing, not worry about that. These guns on the side, I've left the guns off. These are fitted on with poly caps, so I left them partially on there so I can paint it easily with those on there, and then pull those off, put the guns on towards the end, and keep getting it with that. These hatches here along the side open. The way the instructions have you do it is that they want you to put these hinges on mount them into this, and then sandwich it between the outer hole and this part here, and then you sandwich these around the other part. I think it would have been easier to do it in reverse, to make it work better. And again, I'm not real thrilled with these opening, because that's just going to mean that if somebody buys it and they start opening this a lot, they're just going to scratch the paint up. I may end up gluing those closed. I may not. I don't know. You know, a lot of times when I sell kits that have gimmicks like that, I just have to warn people, look, if you start opening and closing it, you are going to scratch the paint. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And so just be aware of that. And you know, let the chips fall where they may. I left most of the white parts off just so that I can paint them separately and get good color separation. There's this white part here that goes on the jet back here. It basically looks like it's just a stripe, but I left it off. Of course, I left the tracks off. I'll paint them separately, and I've got a whole box of wheels, but bogies, but I just left them off, and I'll stick them up on little, you know, sticks like this and paint them. The rocket launcher itself has this little hinge that goes in the back that allows that to lift up and out from back here. It goes here, and then there's this white piece that goes here in front of it, and this white piece has polycaps that goes in, and it kind of tilts forward, I guess, and then this can lift up and be at an angle like that. I'm gonna leave that gimmick working because I think it'll be fairly smooth. But I left off this piece, this hinge piece, to put that on. At the end, there are some headlights that go underneath, and it's a nice little arrangement. There's some clear parts that'll go on here, and these go over it. And so I thought, for ease of painting, I'm going to paint, when it comes time, I'm going to paint these and then put the clear parts on it and then paint these, and then I'll be able to mount these on. And when I'm done with any kind of airbrushing or anything that might get on the clear parts, I'll mount them here on the bottom, and they'll be good to go, and I won't have to worry about that. Yeah, I need to just glue that closed. And the jet nozzles, the jet engines that go under here, I've left off just to make access to that area a little easier, and so that I can paint these nozzles, these jet nozzles, fully back there. This part, this bulldozer blade, it goes on the front, and it's supposed to, it fits on here. I'm not going to put it in. It fits on here like this or something. It works. The gimmick is that you put this in there and it fits down. It fits against this, and then you can pull it out and it sticks out front, and it helps to be on camera, John. And it fits over here, and then it comes out, and it, you know, it can move, and these little arms articulate. I may or may not, again, this is something that I may just end up gluing down, because one, there's going to be paint scrape. Two, it's not, if Bandai did this, it would be a really good gimmick that you wouldn't have to worry about it falling apart. This one, if you pull it too hard, it just kind of pulls out. And there again, I just don't know that it's worth having that separate either. And then there's these antennas that go on the back. I definitely left those off for later. They'll go right here, but I know me, if I glue these in now, they will be broken off within the first 5 minutes after, because they're really thin. They're nicely cast, but they're really thin, and it'll just mess up. It won't go well. Now the next step is going to be to prime the interior and paint the interior, and then start putting in the decals. Most of these decals go on the interior. Got a lot of little black stripes that go around the thing too. But I'm probably gonna just paint those or mask those off. I may use the stripes decals in a few areas, but I'm gonna just put these on the inside, and So no need to show that. So let me go off camera and get that done and catch back up with where I'm at. All right, to catch you up on where I'm at, I had intended to show putting the decals in after having painted it off camera. Off camera, I primed it in gray. Then I put this Vallejo Model Air light blue RLM 76 over everything. I just thought it was a nice color. And then I gave it a gloss coat. I used Pledge floor polish, but you know, you use whatever you use. So I gave it a good glossy coat because I knew that I'd be putting on these large decals, and that just makes it a little easier to do so. What I had not factored in was the fact that these kit supplied decals are really bad. They're quite thick. They look good on the sheet, but once I got them off, they were so thick, didn't bend very well, weren't very flexible. It was very difficult to get them to slide into place. Now, I didn't do myself any favors by gluing in the seat backs. I should have left those out. But even without those, or even with those in there, they were really thick. They didn't want to conform. They started breaking up into various pieces, and I had to piece them together. I ended up just sloshing water all inside of this thing just to get it, just to get them to slide around. They really didn't react very well to Solvaset, to soften them up. It took multiple coats. I mean, 4 or 5 coats to get them to settle in. So what I ended up doing was I put the decals on the sidewalls because they're so large. I didn't want to try and replicate those details. I got those in there on the sidewalls. And then there's some console decals that I put in. And these smaller ones were a little easier, but they were still just so thick. And so, I mean, just would not respond to setting solution. The last ones I put in were these. And then at that point, I said, enough is enough. Because there's still, these still needed to be added. And this, and these, and some up here, and this, and this. And I just said, enough is enough. So what I did was I went in and began painting. Now, I painted these dials here, and there's some back here, using Vallejo Game Color Turquoise. Nice color. I love that color. And the seat backings I painted with Gorgon Brown from Vallejo Game Color. And the black elements I painted with this NATO Black. And then for these throttle quadrants here, that's just Vallejo Game Color Gory Red. And this is actually a mixture of the Gory Red and the NATO Black, just to be a little different. So I've got it to this stage, but I still need to do a wash to kind of bring out the detail, and then see where I go from there. Now for a wash, I'm going to use this 502 Abteilung Starship Filth, and I've thinned it with VMS Oil Expert. This just speeds up the drying time. You can mix this with odorless thinner, or you can use this in place of odorless thinner. Don't worry that it's purple. It doesn't alter the final color that I've ever noticed. But I'm just going to go in here with the oils, and because this is over a gloss coat, it should flow fairly well. Now, I like my oils thicker. I don't like them real super flowy. Just personal preference. You do what you want. But I'm just going to go in and all over. I'm just going to apply this into all the little recesses and panel lines. I'm going to apply it like around the edge of the consoles things like that, just to give definition to every little thing. And then I'll be able to go in afterwards and clean everything up with some odorless thinner. Or you can use the Oil Expert to clean up. I choose not to use the Oil Expert for the cleanup, just because since odorless thinner is cheaper. Not that the Oil Expert is really super expensive, but I figure it's already got the drying properties of the Oil Expert happening. So for cleanup, I'll just stick with the odorless thinner, but just going to go all around the seat. Everything is going to get a touch of this oil. So let me get that done. Now I'll go through and just start cleaning up all the excess. I got kind of bored with applying the oils, and so I got sloppier and sloppier as I went along. Usually what I do is I give it a clean up like this, and if it gets it up, that's fine. If it leaves a little more staining than I want, then I'll leave that section alone. See, like there's a little bit of staining around that. I'll go back and look at it later. If I don't want that much, I'll go back and do a second cleanup. It's kind of cool here today, and the air's a bit moist actually. So it's taking the oils a little longer to flash off than it normally does, the thinner rather. Anyway, I'll just keep cleaning up like this. I'll be honest, I'm ready to get this done. I'm finding this interior not quite as fun as I thought it would be. Those decals were a huge letdown. And I thought about just painting it all, but some of these areas over here to the side, which I think look kind of interesting, they didn't really make the panel lines that deep, and I should have, if I would have known the decals were so bad, I probably would have deepened the panel lines and just painted it all and did washes and stuff like that. But live and learn. I find that just about every model has some little area that'll disappoint me, because I tend to be, because I always look for the fun, I tend to be disappointed in some way, because not every part of every model is a lot of fun. But I drive on to get to the part that is fun, because I think the weathering for this is going to be quite fun. So let me get this cleaned up, get closer to the really fun stuff. All right, that's mostly done. I'm going to give it a little more time to dry. There's a few areas where the oils are still kind of wet and not as easy to clean up, so I'm going to give it a little more time to dry. And a couple of places I need to touch up, and because when you try and clean up the oils too soon, if you get impatient like I am right now, they tend to come up more than you want them to. So I'm just going to set it aside, that part aside for now. But what I am going to do is I need to get it primed, and the exterior, and of course that's going to go on the top, and this is going to go on there. And I'm not going to put those hatches on because they're going to be a darker gray, so I'm going to keep them off for color separation purposes. So what I need to do is I need to put some masking here on the inside of this so that it won't blow into the interior that is disappointing me. Now, before I put any masking on anything, I always detack it, because even after putting it up against my hand like that multiple times, it'll have enough tack to hold on. But what I don't want to happen is I don't want it to pull up paint when I pull the masking off. So I'm just going to put some right along there, and I'll trim that up with my knife. But that way, when I prime, it'll mask it off very nicely. I won't have to worry about it getting into the interior. So let me do this side. All right, and I've got that masked up. Now I'm going to leave these parts separate so that I can come back later and maybe do some more cleanup on the interior. Maybe touch it up with a little more paint. But I'll prime this, and what I'll do is I'll prime the whole exterior, and then I'll pop these open and prime inside of there also, and close them back down. Like I mentioned earlier in the video, I think. I'm not 100% sure. I'm not going to just glue those down because I'm not a fan of gimmicks of things moving on models. I'm not a big fan of that at all. I love building stuff like this. I love building Gunpla, which is fully articulated. I love building Machining Krieger, which has articulation. But I'm much more of a fan of fixed pose stuff, because when you do painting and weathering, like with a Gunpla, but even with this, if you do painting and weathering and all of that, the more you start playing with it, the more stuff just comes off. So it's always a balance for me to, if I were just putting it on my shelf, I'd glue everything down. But since I try to sell most of what I do, I try to leave it and just figure whoever buys it, they can do whatever they want with it. But anyway, let me go get all this stuff primed. All right, I've got everything primed. It's all primed with Badger Stynel Res Primer. The parts that are going to be white, I primed in gray primer because I'll put a very light gray over them, and then maybe some white highlights over them. The tracks are red-brown primer because those are going to be painted, brown, metallic, rusty looking, so that's a good base for that. And then everything else was just primed in black. And that way, if I miss any areas like up there in the air intakes and stuff like that, it'll be shadowed and it'll be black and everything will be cool. And I've got all 20 of these wheels and all of that and all the different sub-assemblies. Got all of that done. So in the next video, I'll do the painting, and I'm planning to do the painting and the weathering in one video. We'll see how that works out. Depends on how extensive I get with the painting. So as always, thank you so much for watching this video. I know it's probably been kind of boring, but I'm not Mr. Excitement. Never have been. So if you've watched my videos, you know that I just do what I do, and that's pretty much it. So anyway, thank you so much for watching, and you know the deal. If you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong. So happy day to you, friends. Bye-bye.